story time. Do you remember the book we're reading? The Adventures of the Wishing Chair. We've read chapter 1 and 2 and 3, and now we're up to chapter 4. Put on your glasses, Grandma. Chapter 4. It's called The Ho-Ho Wizard. One day, when Peter and Mollie ran down to see Chinky the pixie in their playroom, they found him reading a letter and groaning loudly. "What's the matter, Chinky?" said the children in surprise. "Oh, I've had a letter from my cousin Gobbo," said Chinky. "Gobbo says that my village is very unhappy because of a wizard who has come to live there. He's called Ho-Ho. He's a horrid fellow, and he walks about saying, 'Ho, ho,' all the time, catching the little pixies to help him in his magic, and putting all kinds of spells on anyone that goes against him. I feel very unhappy." "Oh, Chinky, we're so sorry," said the children. "Can't we help?" "I don't think so," said Chinky sadly. "But I would very much like to go off in the wishing chair to my village next time it grows wings, if that's okay." "Of course," said the children. And then Mollie cried out in delight and pointed to the magic chair. "Look, it's growing its wings now." "Oh, how lovely. It must have heard what you said." "We'll all go," said Peter, feeling excited to think another adventure had begun. "Oh no," said Chinky at once. "I'd better go alone. This wizard is a horrid one. He might well catch you, and you are clever children, and then think how dreadful I would feel." "I don't care," said Peter. "We're coming." So he and Mollie went to the chair and sat firmly in it. Chinky went to it and sat down too, squeezing in between the two. "You are such nice children," he said happily. The chair creaked, and before it could fly off, Pixie cried out loudly, "Go to the village of the apple pie!" It flew slowly to the door, flapping its rose-red wings. The children were used to flying off in the magic chair now, but they were just as excited as ever. The village of apple pie! Oh, how magic that sounded! It didn't take them very long to get there. The chair put them down in the middle of the village street and was at once surrounded by an excited crowd of pixies who shook hands with Chinky and asked him 100 questions. He talked at the top of his voice, explained who the children were and why he had come, and then he turned pale. The Ho-Ho Wizard was coming down the street. He was a little fellow with a long flowing cloak that swirled out as he walked and showed its bright golden lining. On his head he wore a round, tight cap set with silver bells that tinkled loudly. He wore 3 pairs of glasses on his long nose and a beard that hung in 3 pieces down to his waist. He really was a queer-looking fellow. Fancy having bells on your head. "Ho, ho," he said as he came near the pixies. "What have we here? Visitors? And bless us all, this is a wishing chair, as sure as dogs have tails. Well, well, well." Nobody said anything at all. The wizard prodded the stair with a long stick, and then he turned to the children. "Ho, ho," he said, blinking at them through his pairs of glasses. "Ho, ho, so you have a magic chair? Pray, come and have a cup of cocoa with me this morning, and I will buy the chair from you." "But we don't want to sell it," began Peter at once. The wizard turned round on him, and from his eyes there came what looked like real sparks. He was very angry. "How dare you refuse me anything?" he cried. "I will turn you into a—" "Oh, we will come in half an hour," said Chinky, pushing Peter behind him. This boy did not understand how important you are, Sir Wizard. "Brrr," said the wizard, and stalked off, his cloak flying out behind him. "Now what are we to do?" said Peter in dismay. "Can't we get the chair to fly off, Chinky? Do let's." No, don't," cried all the pixies. "If you do, Ho-Ho will punish the whole village, and that will be terrible. Stay here and help us." "Come to my cousin Gobbo's cottage and let us think," said Chinky. So the two children went with him and Gobbo, who was really very like Chinky, to a little crooked cottage at the end of the village. It was beautifully clean and neat, and the children sat down to eat coconut cakes and drink lemonade. Everyone was rather quiet. And then Peter's eyes began to twinkle, and he leaned over to Gobbo. "I say, Gobbo, do you by any chance have a spell to put people to sleep?" he asked. "Of course," said Gobbo, puzzled. "Why?" "Well, I have a fine plan," said Peter. "What about putting Ho-Ho to sleep?" "What's the use of that?" said Chinky and Gobbo. "Well, when he is asleep, we will pop him into the magic chair and take him off somewhere and leave him, and then go back home ourselves. That would get rid of him for you, wouldn't it?" "Oh, my goodness, that is an idea!" cried Chinky, jumping from his seat in excitement. "Gobbo, if only we could do it. Listen, where is the sleepy spell?" "Here," said Gobbo, opening a drawer and taking out a tiny yellow thing like a mustard seed. "Well, Peter has a bag of chocolates," said Chinky. "He could put the sleepy spell into one of them and give it to Ho-Ho." "But how do we know he would take the right chocolate?" asked Molly. "We'll empty out all of them except for one," answered Chinky. "And that one Peter shall carry in the bag in his hand, and he must carry it as though it's something so most precious indeed. And Ho-Ho is sure to ask him what it is. And if Peter says it is a very special chocolate that he is not going to part with, or something like that, the old wizard is sure to be greedy enough to want it, and he'll take it and eat it. And then he'll fall asleep, and we'll take him off in the chair to the old... And we'll take him off in the chair to old Dame Tap-Tap, who will be so pleased to have him." Dame Tap-Tap. "He once tried to turn her into a ladybird, so I don't think she will let him go in a hurry." "Good idea!" cried everyone. And Gobbo danced around the room so excitedly that he fell over the coal scuttle and sent the fire irons clanking to the floor. That made them all laugh, and they felt so excited that they could hardly empty out Peter's bag of chocolates on the table and choose one for the sleepy spell. They chose a chocolate with a violet on top because it looked so grand. Peter made a little hole and popped in the spell. And then he left the rest of the chocolates with Gobbo, who said he would enjoy them very much, and put the violet one in the bag, and then went off to get the wishing chair with the others. It was still standing in the marketplace, its red wings hanging down, for it was tired. Chinky and Peter thought they may as well carry it to Ho-Ho's cottage, which was only in the next street. So off they went, taking it on their shoulders. Ho-Ho was waiting for them, his wily face watching from a window. He opened the door, and they all went in with the chair. "I see you have brought me the chair," said Ho-Ho. "Very sensible of you. Now sit down and have a cup of cocoa." He poured out some very thin cocoa for them, made without any milk, and looked at them all sharply. He at once saw that Peter was holding something very special in his hand, which he did not even put down when he was drinking his cocoa. "What have you got in your hand?" he asked. "Something I want to keep," said Peter at once. "Show me," said the wizard eagerly. "No," said Peter. "Show me," said the wizard angrily. Peter pretended to be frightened and at once put the paper bag on the table. The wizard took it and opened it, and he took out the chocolate. "Ho, ho, the finest chocolate I ever saw," he said. He licked it to see what it tasted like. "Oh, don't eat it! Oh, don't eat it!" cried Peter at once, pretending to be very upset. "It's mine!" "Well, now it's mine," said the wizard, and he popped it into his mouth and chewed it up. And no sooner had he swallowed it that his head began to nod and his eyes closed, and he sounded like 20 pigs grunting. "The spell worked! The spell worked!" cried Peter, jumping about in excitement. "Now, Peter, there's no time to jump and yell," said Chinky hurriedly. "The spell may stop at any time. We don't want to wake up the wizard till we've got him to Dame Tap-Tap's. Help me put him into the chair." Between them, they dumped the sleeping wizard into the chair, and then Mollie sat on one arm and Peter sat on the other, and Chinky sat right at the top of the back. "To Dame Tap-Tap's," he cried. At once the wishing chair flapped its idle wings, flew out of the door and up into the air, cheered by all the pixies in the village. Oh, what a thrill it was! In about 5 minutes, the chair flew downwards again into a small cottage set right on the top of a windy hill. It was Dame Tap-Tap's home. The chair flew down to her front door, outside which there was a wooden bench. The three of them pulled the snoring wizard out of the chair and put him on the bench. Then Chinky took hold of the knocker and banged it hard 4 times. "Rat, tat, tat, tat," he yelled at the top of his voice. "Dame Tap-Tap, there is a present for you." And then he and the children bundled into the wishing chair again, and off they flew into the air. They were leaning over to see the old dame crying out in astonishment and delight when she opened the door and found the old wizard sleeping on the bench. "What a shock for him when he wakes up," said Chinky with a grin. "Well, children, many, many thanks for your help. You've saved Apple Pie Village from a very nasty fellow. It will be nice to think of him dusting Dame Tap-Tap's kitchen and getting water from her well. I guess she'll make him work very hard." "Ho, ho, ho!" roared the children, and the chair flew down into their playroom. Perhaps the wizard won't say "ho, ho" quite so much to Dame Tap-Tap. "No, he might get a spanking if he did," said Chinky. "Well, here we are. See you tomorrow, children." And that's the end of chapter 4. I do like these adventures. I hope you do too. Come back again. Bye-bye.